Hello, I'm Novaline Brewster, and I'm delighted to have this conversation with the President and Chairman of the Board of Directors of the African Export-Import Bank, Professor Benedict Oramah. Professor Oramah is in Barbados on a 4-day visit as a guest of the government, and he's been exploring opportunities of mutual interest. Welcome, Professor.
Thank you very much, Novaline.
It's a delight to have you here. Explain for us what is the mission of the African Export-Import Bank?
Our African Export-Import Bank is the Exim Bank for Africa. In the 1980s, Africa went through a major crisis caused by the global debt crisis. Many international banks cut credit lines to Africa. So Afrexim Bank was created as Africa's response to that crisis. And its main goal was to find a way of leveraging international finance back into the continent of Africa, promoting intra-regional trade, intra-African trade, promoting trade in value-added exports, promoting trade between Africa and South economies, other developing economies. And that is what the bank has been doing since it was created in 1993.
So, Professor, help our viewers understand how you managed to help transform the African continent, the bank, that is.
Well, the bank, because of the nature of the bank and its history, it has been a very, very solid partner of the African Union member states as they deal with the various episodic crises that the continent has faced. In recent years, for example, during the commodity crisis of 2015, 2016, Afrexim Bank intervened strongly, disbursing over $10 billion, which helped many African economies to ride the crisis successfully and to recover very, very quickly. During the pandemic, we are still into the COVID-19 pandemic, Afrexim Bank launched the Pandemic Trade Impact Mitigation Facility, helped create the Africa Medical Supplies Platform. Under the Pandemic Impact Mitigation Facility, the bank has disbursed over $7 billion, which has helped countries to procure COVID intervention materials, test kits, personal protective equipment, therapeutics, and indeed also extended these to the CARICOM countries through the Africa Medical Supplies Platform. It is also the African Export-Import Bank that guaranteed the procurement of vaccines by the African Union member states and the CARICOM states up to an amount of $2 billion. It is these vaccines that are being now delivered all across Africa and the CARICOM countries, saving lives, saving livelihoods. This is on top of other interventions we've done. Being the major bank that is providing trade finance all across the continent, providing financing for manufacturing, creating manufacturing capacities across the African continent.
So, Professor, help us to understand, why are you in Barbados at this time, and why are you seeking to deepen the relationship with Barbados and CARICOM?
Well, the role of Afrexim Bank is to concretize the political aspirations of the leadership of African economies. And a few years ago, the African Union designated the CARICOM countries as the CARICOM as the 6th region of Africa. And through the fantastic work that has been done with the support of Her Excellency the Prime Minister Maya Motley, a lot of work has been done in terms of making sure there is a political will to integrate the African Union member states, the African continent, to the CARICOM economies. But to move beyond that, to turn those political aspirations, this is something concrete, tangible for our people. We need banks, you need the finance, you need the business people. And my reason for being here is to begin that process, to identify those things we must do so that the political aspirations can become can be converted into something tangible for the people of Africa and the people of the CARICOM.
Professor, identify some of the tangible opportunities that you've earmarked to work on with the CARICOM countries.
Well, this economy is heavily dependent on tourism. So, of course, the first thing, the greatest opportunity is to see how to leverage tourism as a basis to promote the integration. So one of the first things we want to do is to promote tourism communication between Africa and the CARICOM economies. And one of the things we said we will do is work together to make sure there is a direct air link, there's a shipping link, but also to promote through tourism fairs the direct tourism interaction between Africa and the CARICOM economies. But we also need to create an opportunity, a platform for Africans to invest in the Caribbean and for the Caribbean businesses to also invest in Africa. We also want to make sure that those who want to trade actually do trade. We remove the constraint of financing. And that is why we will be going back immediately to put a facility in place which we agreed to call the Africa Caribbean Trade and Investment Financing Facility. Afrexim Bank will go to the board, to his board, to put in place a $250 million immediately to support this initiative. And we'll be willing to raise this as quickly as possible once there is an uptake. We are not going to say, oh, let's wait until things start happening before we put financing, because we know that businesses have it behind their mind that there's no financing. So why talk about it? So we want to tell them there's financing, so you must talk about it. This is one of the things that will happen very, very quickly. We also want to do exchanges. Make sure that businesses in Caribbean go to Africa and African businesses come to Africa. We want to make sure we are able to create manufacturing capacities, logistic capacities, working together with not only the businesses here, but also bringing African investors who know how to do those things. These are the kind of things we are expecting to see. I just finished a meeting with the youth. The creative economy is one area that we see strong potential here to bring the Caribbean economies also to integrate them into the African economy, because the creative sector is booming on the continent of Africa. The African economy has 1.4 billion people with huge appetite for creative content. And we believe that this will be something very, very positive for the Caribbean economies if we create a link that can lead to co-production of content by Africans and the Caribbeans.
Can you explain for us how the financing facility would be used?
This facility, is to be a global omnibus facility. This facility will be able to help those who want to confirm letters of credit. I spoke to some businesses today. One of them was talking about some imports they were making from South Africa. Those kind of things, we will be able to confirm letters of credit. We will be able to refinance those letters of credit, provide guarantees, provide investment financing facilities. There are opportunities here for renewable energy. There are companies in Africa that are first class in developing this renewable energy. We finance quite a number of projects currently in Africa, done by Africans. Big companies in energy like El Suwidi in Egypt, that are global companies. So we want this kind of facility to be available to support those kinds of investments. So it will cover all of these. Who will access it? Those are the kind of things that we will be discussing with the CARICOM Secretariat to see how we would organize the anchor for delivering the facility to the different CARICOM economies.
Okay, you said you've met with young people in Barbados. Let us just quickly summarize, with whom else have you been meeting?
Well, of course, we are here on the invitation of the Prime Minister, Maya Motley. So we've had very, very, very insightful meetings with her government. We've met with the Ms. Bennett, the Secretary General of the CARICOM, the CARICOM community. We've also met with the Bankers Association, met with the Chamber of Commerce, met with the youth, and we're planning other meetings, including with the Central Bank. We've also met with the Caribbean Development Bank. These have been extremely useful meetings. So we look forward to taking on board some of the suggestions.
What were some of those suggestions and ideas you got?
Some of those suggestions and ideas align with what we're thinking. The businesses are really eager to get going. They talked about access to capital, and that's why we needed to put this facility in place as quickly as possible. They talked about access to information, and we are discussing with the Prime Minister the possibility of integrating the CARICOM into the Africa Trade Gateway, a suite of digital platforms we already have to support the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. These include the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System that is making it possible for Africans to pay for intra-regional trade in African currencies. It includes the Africa Customer Due Diligence Repository platform, under which due diligence is done on anybody who is on that platform. Trade information portal, trade regulations portal. The idea is, how do we integrate the CARICOM as a sixth region into this? So that becomes a window for access to information by Africans who want to do business in the CARICOM, by CARICOM who want to do business in Africa. Also for CARICOM people who want to get information about their businesses. People who have discussed, especially the business people, they talked about the need for discussions to start on a free trade area between Africa and the CARICOM. I think this is a very useful advice. So we're going to take it back. We discussed it also with the Prime Minister Motley. I think politically there is the will to move in that direction. So that is something that we need to find ways to kickstart, given that the CARICOM already have something, and Africa now has the AfCFTA, the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. What now needs to be done is how to get these two to integrate, so that we can have a legal basis to do trade more freely amongst ourselves.
So this capital credit will be available at concessionary rates, Professor?
Well, I was talking to some, I think, was it the youth? Yeah. No, the journalists who talked to me, their colleagues. We don't want to use concessional rates to finance commercial transactions. And in fact, what we're trying to walk away from in Africa is this donor and grant mentality, because that has brought Africa down. And I'm sure it's having the same effect here in the Caribbean. I've never seen any country that developed because you received the highest concessional loan or grant. We must do commercial business commercially. We must finance them based on commercial terms, so that if they are successful, they will become global companies. They can compete globally. If we prop up a business because we are giving it subsidy, can never succeed, and it will keeping ourselves down. What we do is to make sure that the financing is affordable. It is able to be consistent with the business plan that we see. We encourage businesses to develop businesses that can survive, because if you give concession on financing, you have to give concession on labor, you have to give concession on electricity, concession everywhere. So the economy is being pulled down. It's not good. So we need to support commercial transactions commercially. We can use concession to do social projects. That is fine, but not commercial transactions.
So are there any social projects on the drawing board to pursue?
Well, we have a whole lot of things we are discussing with the government, and there may be the opportunity for those, and then appropriate financing for those will be discussed.
How attractive is the CARICOM, though, to African business people at this time, particularly in the absence of direct air links and shipping links? I know you said that that is one of the areas you're going to work on, but that has always been a bugbear.
Well, you know, because we, over the years, in recent years, there has not been a deliberate effort to promote this relationship. And I'll give you an example. Many Africans come to the Caribbean on vacation. But how do they come? They come through Europe or through the US. You do not have a direct way of Africans to come here on vacation. Whereas if you look at the data, you will see that many Africans come here. But just as Africa suffers today by export of commodities, where it produces all the commodities, it gets very, very small percentage of the value chain. Caribbean has all the beauty, the natural beauty, the oceans and all the beaches and all that people come to see. But look at the tourism value chain. What proportion of it does the CARICOM capture? I don't have the data, but I can bet it cannot be more than 15%. So if you develop the direct links, you begin to capture more of the value chain. You begin to create more tourism industry entrepreneurs. We are doing this effort for communities, as I said, in Africa. We want to do the same here. So the opportunities exist. Renewable energy opportunities here. Creating a logistics hub here. Look at the US market. That is a great opportunity. Creating industrial parks here to supply Africa and supply the US. It's a fantastic opportunity. So we think the opportunities are there. And once the opportunities are identified and the political will is there, you will see the shipping link emerge. And by the way, just before the COVID, there was an airline that just started flying to Jamaica from Nigeria. Just before COVID, and they stopped because of COVID. So we're sure that as economies begin to open up, they will restart. So we're making progress, really.
And I know Barbados was supposed to have had a direct flight as well from one of the African countries.
Yes. I believe that airline will probably stop, do a hop, maybe stop and then stop. I don't know how they will do it, but I know that because I got an invitation to join the maiden flight. So I know they already just started and then COVID came. Professor,
you met with the officials at the University of the West Indies. Just give us a synopsis of those talks, what were the outcomes and any opportunities for exchanges. You mentioned other exchanges earlier, but you did not include anything on the University of the West Indies.
The University of the West Indies, we hold it in very high esteem. I personally, I hold it in very, very high esteem because in economics, they have a good history of very, very great intellectuals. It was really very interesting for me to see a painting of Arthur Lewis there, the Nobel laureate in economics. So if you go there too, you see how the African roots of the Caribbean is everywhere. The building, the administrative building, is designed to capture the Golden Stool, the Ashanti Golden Stool, and we have all sorts of African history all littered all around the place. So what we're doing is to make sure we deepen the strategy they've already started implementing of strengthening links with Africa. We want to bring the students from there on internship program to African Export-Import Bank. We will be finalizing that arrangement because that is one way we can begin to get the young ones to begin to return to their roots. So we want to also work with them. A number of other programs that are looking, as some of them they started in the area of medicine, also in the area of a history project we are doing ourselves. We will be collaborating with them to implement those.
Coming out of these discussions, what role is Barbados playing to make sure that we solidify and strengthen and advance this relationship?
Yeah, well, one of the reasons we are here is because of the goodwill that Prime Minister Motley has built all across Africa as chair of the CARICOM, I think last year. Barbados has also deep links. It's already opened embassies in a number of African countries. We and a couple of people in the government of Barbados also have very, very good relations. There are the governments, African governments, that also have very, very good direct relations with the government of Barbados, as they also have with a number of other countries in the CARICOM. The Prime Minister is continuing the work she did when she was chair, which is very good. So she's lending her support to some of the initiatives that we're talking about. So we'll be counting on them. Also working very, very closely with the CARICOM Secretariat, with the new chair of the CARICOM, to make sure that all these ideas are concretized. There has to be a gateway. Barbados is an important gateway. We would make sure that we get as much mileage as we can from the relationships we have formed here in Barbados.
Any possibility that Barbados could be a domicile for operations of the African Export-Import Bank?
I don't want to make any comments on that. We're going to discuss that at the board level as we develop this relationship with the CARICOM.
Okay, Professor, tell us about the trade fair that comes off very soon in Africa.
In implementing the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, one of the deliverables is the Intra-African Trade Fair. We did the first in 2018 in Egypt. That trade fair attracted more than 1,000 exhibitors, about 7,000 visitors, and then we closed deals of $32 billion. The second edition is coming up. It was supposed to come up last year because it's a trade fair done once every 2 years. It was supposed to come up last year, but because of COVID, it was postponed. Now it will take place in Durban, South Africa, between the 15th of November and the 21st of November. We expect more than 1,000 exhibitors already registered. We expect more than $40 billion in deals to be closed. We expect more than 10,000 visitors. And the purpose of that trade fair is to begin to bring down the divisions that the fragmentation of Africa has brought to us, and the difficulties is creating in intra-regional trade and investment. We also have a virtual trade fair which runs all through. The virtual trade fair has been running since 2018 and is being actively used by different countries to showcase their goods. So the trade fair again will help boost activity in the virtual trade fair. We are hoping that some countries from the CARICOM would attend. The trade fair has a number of verticals. We have the youth pavilion, and I spoke with the youth, encourage them to consider competing for the youth startup activities that will be done in the youth pavilion, because that may give them the opportunity to attract investors. The venture funds are going to be there looking for opportunities to invest. We have the Creative Africa Nexus that also will be holding as part of the trade fair. We've had very, very good discussions with some of those who are interested in creatives here so that they can find a way of participating. We also have an automotive show because we now want to do auto shows once every 2 years in Africa at the sidelines of the trade fair. And of course, the trade exhibition and the trade and investment conference. So it's going to be a big thing, and I hope that businesses and countries from this part of the world, in the spirit of what is happening, will take advantage of that and see if they can begin to get connected with the rest of Africa.
Professor, from your conversations, your experience in Barbados over the past few days, how ready do you think we in the Caribbean are to compete on the African stage?
Well, you know, competition is a matter of comparative advantage. There are things that can be done here, and I would like to look at it from collaboration, because there are opportunities that the Barbados and the CARICOM offers Africa. I've just given you one example. See, China today exports about $60 billion of light manufactures to the continent. China is going up the value chain. Labor costs are rising. So they're moving away from light manufacturers. So who is going to replace them? Unless we find a way of producing those $60 billion worth of goods, somebody else will come and start supplying that to Africa. And from China to Africa is far, far, far further away than from Barbados or the Caribbean to Africa. So Africans are building industrial parks, special economic zone in many countries, but they can come here and do the same. Produce some of those things, re-export them to Africa, but also just across the Caribbean Sea or so, the Atlantic Ocean, with the US market. So that is a fantastic opportunity for African investors. So many may want to take advantage of it. There can be a logistics hub here. Businesses that want to deal with Latin America, the US, Canada, may use here as a hub to do things. And the Caribbean, you have long experience in tourism. Some African economies have experience in tourism, but many don't. So it may well be an opportunity to collaborate in that area.
Briefly, Professor, what about collaboration in the area of fintechs and digitization? Because you have digital parks in places like Rwanda, yes, for instance.
Yeah, we talked about it also. The payment system, one of the things we are thinking to do is what I told you about linking the Africa Trade Gateway to the Caribbean. But the youth startup program we have is a way, an instrument of attracting the talents, making sure we discover the talents in that area. And this will be an opportunity that will be open to the Caribbean youth, especially those who are in technology, once we begin to implement some of the ideas we are discussing here today. And that's one of the reasons also we want to make sure we build a strong partnership with the Caribbean Development Bank. So working together, we're able to identify those and support them effectively.
And finally, Professor, how can the bank leverage its experience and expertise from back in the 1990s to help us here in the Caribbean resolve our debt issues and strengthen our macroeconomic fundamentals that have been really pummeled by COVID-19?
Thank you very much. Lovely. You see, the strengthening the economy requires that we help to transform the relations of production. We also help to ensure that there is a structural transformation of the economy. And the structural transformation here means to diversify the economy more away from tourism, to find ways of increasing the tax base, to find ways of generating more exports, as different from the foreign exchange you receive from tourism. And that is why this partnership can be very, very important for the Caribbean. Because what it does is that it opens new opportunities for markets, new opportunities for investment that will help that diversification, so that you expand the production base, you make it possible for exports to grow, and that changes the current account narrative that Barbados has. And when that happens, hopefully the external debt situation will also begin to improve. But there are other things that create this debt situation. The way countries play in the international debt capital markets, because of liquidity issues. When we issue bonds, they attract liquidity premium. So although an European or Asian or whatever, some of the other countries will have the same rating as an African country, or even a Caribbean country. When you go out to issue a bond, the interest rates are different. So you begin to wonder, it's because of liquidity premium. So on the part of Africa, Afrexim Bank is working with a number of institutions to find a way to deal with this. And I'm aware that the Prime Minister Motley, as chair of the Development Committee, is also very, very, very engaged in it to make sure we address this. So tackling those things, driving it rather from our point of view, rather than trying to see if others would come in to help us, because that probably may not happen. Maybe one way, but in the long term, we have to develop these relationships between Africa and the Caribbean, so that collectively we will improve our external position, we will improve our fiscal positions, and that way we strengthen our economies.
Thank you very much, Professor. Opportunities abound. It was an absolute delight having this conversation. And thank you for tuning in.